70 to 80% of businesses that go to market never sell.
Most founders spend years building something real and then sell it for half of what it should be worth. Not because the business is bad, but because it's built around them.
Don't expect the buyer to be fixing what you could not fix, because you will be discounted for that.
Welcome back to Scale Smart, Grow Fast. I'm Adrienne, guest hosting today for my husband, Harley Green. And that gap between what a business is worth and what it actually sells for is exactly where today's guest lives. It's also why at Workergenix, we put full-time executive assistants inside founder-led firms so that execution doesn't live and die with one person and decrease your value of your business. So my guest today is Muriel Touati, founder of Exit 3D Studio, known for taking businesses from a 2x multiple to a 6 or 8x by fixing the structural stuff that buyers quietly price as risk. Let's get into it. So, Muriel, you spent years on the buyer side, actually evaluating deals and making offers before you started Exit 3D Studio. What were you seeing in those businesses that made you think, I should be fixing these, not buying them?
Well, before starting, I would say I'm still interested to buy some businesses, but I would say more like a year and a half, to be very accurate, a year and a half. And yes, what I have kept seeing was a lot of like founder dependent business, high customer concentration, revenue unpredictability, weak digital presence that was signaling that the client were coming from referral, for example. All of those was like red flags for me and for most buyers or even investors. I'm just back from the tech week where I've been speaking with a lot of, VC investors and all. It's another world, but they are also looking for proof and predictability when they invest in a business, and other buyer were like that. But I know as a founder, and I have been there, I didn't know all of that. I thought it was okay that I was doing everything myself. I thought it was okay. Maybe I work with just 5 clients, but all these are very risky. No matter you plan to sell your business one day or you want to keep it, those are risks for you as well, not just for a buyer.
I think that's a really good point. So often the things that make a business have a high value for selling are really the fundamentals that make it a strong business, where even if you're going to keep it, it will continue to do well for you. Now, you've said most of this comes down to 4 structural problems before. Can you walk us through those?
Yes, absolutely. If we start with customer concentration, for example, that means that only a handful of clients are bringing most of the revenue. Let's say you work with 20 clients, but 3 of them are doing 60% of the revenue. Is a risk and a red flag for a buyer and a risk for you, because if tomorrow one of these clients leave, then you're losing maybe 20, 30% at once just by losing one client. So it can be comfortable and it's good to have big clients. The second one is the founder dependency, the fact that everything's maybe live in your head, nothing is documented, or you execute absolutely everything. This is what it means. The revenue predictability is, can we predict how much revenue is coming next year? Or is it a project-based business and we only know what is happening in a month or 2 months because we signed the contract. And after that, we don't know what's happening. So this is what means the revenue predictability. And the weak digital asset comes down to having some revenue engine outside of the founder and the referral word of mouth, is having a real systems that actually bring leads and clients almost in an automatic way.
That's fabulous. Now, owner dependency that you've mentioned really seems to stick out to me, because When I was an active real estate agent, that's what we see all the time in real estate, right? It depends on that real estate agent. Even if they have a team of agents, it's the John Doe team, right? And it's all really focused around that, like, superstar celebrity that's leading that team. When a founder is the business, how do you even begin to untangle that? If one of our listeners identifies, oh no, that's my issue, where would you recommend they start to fix it?
Yes. But the first things is, first of all, documenting what is it that you do and that someone could be doing instead of you. Someone like an assistant or another real estate agent or an employee. These days, even some automation, I will say. Because even the assistant, paying an assistant to do something really repetitive is not 2026. It's 2020. you know, you might want also to automate things, even if you outsource the checking and one-off task, at least having the repetitive, for example, if it's in terms of prospection or sending the email, like you want to be automating this, for example. Yeah.
That's a really good point. So we look at what we don't have to do ourselves, what we could use automation or hand off to someone else. Love that. First thing is just doing that identification. Now, let's talk about another one of those, the revenue concentration and also the unpredictable cash flow, right? Really, how do we make our revenue more dependable, right? Less risky. How do you help a founder start to smooth out and handle those revenue issues, realizing that they really don't ever want to slow growth, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. We don't want to slow. We always want to keep growing. I think it would depend exactly on the business to make the best recommendation, but overall it would be to bring new clients, just to diversify the portfolio. And once you have a client, try to keep the client a way or another, maybe introducing some sort of retainer so they keep working with you. Even for project-based business, it's possible to introduce something like that, for maintenance, something, but you keep the relationship and you get some revenue monthly from this client.
I know that something I'm reminded of is when I worked with a attorney for like a trust and estate plan that can often be viewed as like a project-based work, right? They have a one-time thing.
Yes.
And yet that attorney did exactly what you're talking about. They created like a maintenance plan where you pay annually and that gets you, an annual meeting with the attorney to check in, see if anything's changed. And he also did like calls for all of his clients about changes in laws and things like that. So he was able to take that project based work and then come up with a subscription based model on the back end that continued that relationship long term.
Yeah, that works really well also for, our content, tax, for them it can be easily monthly. For the lawnmower, just want to say the
Lawnmowers,
right.
like,
Yeah, yes.
yeah, like a lawn
It can
service.
be like, I don't know how often you do that. Let's say every 2 months or monthly, you have subscription. So it's not a one time in the summer. I don't know. Maybe they get instead of paying, and I'm inventing, I don't know, $500 for doing the job one times a year. Maybe it will be, they have to win something from doing that. So you
Right.
calculate, how many times a year you can come. Subscription monthly, maybe it will be $100 or $80 a month, and they can call you a few times a year. Yeah, it can be
Right.
set up. It's something I'm working on with. Once I know better the business and the business model, the pricing, I help in one of the package I have.
Now, let's talk about execution and follow through. One of my like things I love is setting up some fabulous operations, right? My thought is, mistakes are going to happen, things are going to go wrong in a business, but then I want to like improve our operations and our systems so we never make the same mistake twice, right? That's the idea. Now, from your standpoint, how much of valuation in your experience is really about the day to day operational layer and the systems and processes that are in place to handle that?
In terms of valuation, the impact of the operation, there is a lot to say about it. Like is there any key employees? Because this is priced as a risk, for example, and you will most likely get a seller note, hold back for that. Just if the key employee leave with all his process, know-how, maybe even the client, it will be, it will lower the multiple, and plus you will get a seller note or holdback. Today, there is a lot to do with operation also to lower, the risk on, key employee departure. Is building some, semi-automated operation. But again, it depends what it is. I would say, yeah, for that part, for the operation, there's the key employee, like who are working on the operation and the system. And if somebody go, can you hire easily someone else, or is there like a long training period? Does the founder has to train personally each new person, or is there like a training already in place? And yeah, I can, take some time to prepare everything. But if you do it well, like once, and you get the help you need to do it, then it will smooth everything.
Right. Now, let's say a founder are 3 to 5 years out from a sale, right? They're thinking ahead that they know they want to retire or transition. Where should they start? What's the first move when you've got about a 3 to 5 year runway to your sale?
Well, that's the ideal time. You can actually do everything in phases, reduce your founder dependency, we'll say, especially from sales. If we start from there, it will grow the revenue. It will give a, trend in the 3 years that a buyer will analyze. It will be less dependent on you, less risk. So just doing that, building an acquisition engine that does not depend on you or anyone, actually, this will be the first things to start. And then you continue, you keep delegating, documenting, automating what you can in your operation. Don't expect the buyer to be fixing what you could not fix, because you will be discounted for that. If you cannot expect a high multiple for a projection of what the buyer could be doing instead of you, it is upside, not yours. So I'm thinking about a business I evaluated not long ago. It was a car wash, a premium car wash, good location, and no automation, just maybe a team of 8 employees and washing, inside of the car, outside of the car, everything by hand, luxury. And they wanted still like a high multiple and everything, saying, yeah, but the future owner could install an automated system, like an automatic car wash, and it will cost that much more. But the seller wanted the upside of that without thinking it through, because if the future buyer do that, it does not even need to buy this car wash, because it might have to fire after some of the employees, if everybody's going in the automated car wash. So this is something that the seller should be thinking about.
Exactly. If it's such a great deal, you got to do it as the owner now,
Yes.
and then your business will be worth more, not because the buyer can do it in the future. Really good point.
If you're running a growing company and still handling too many operational details yourself, there's a better way forward. The Delegate or Die checklist shows you the exact tasks that drain leadership bandwidth and the simple changes that recover 15 to 30 plus hours a week. Download it free at workergenix.com/scale-smart. Now let's get back to the episode.
Now, let's instead say we've got an owner who's like, I got to sell in 12 months or less. Is it too late, or what can they realistically still fix if they've got less than a year runway to sell?
So it would show some effort 1 year, like if you only correct the last year, it will show effort, but it will not fix everything. In the sense that if you had a bad year 2 years ago, we still see it in the financial, and it will impact your valuation anyway. That's why it's always better to plan at least 3 years before, because we can fix everything. I mean, you can do a lot of things in 1 year. Still, you can, delegate, hire, add some add back. This is actually what will happen most likely, but this is also why 70 to 80% of businesses that go to market never sell, is because they only do a superficial fix, because you can just work with the financials to increase. This is what business brokers do, and other advisors, they will fix the financial, but the structural work to be less founder dependent, to diversify the portfolio of clients, to have revenue, predictable revenue, all of that, it takes a bit more time. But in 1 year, you can start. I've wrote a book, The Valuation Gap, What Buyer Sees That Seller Miss. First of all, you can download the first chapter free on my website. So exit3dstudio.com/the-valuation-gap. In this book, I explain in detail the structural issues that can be corrected well in advance. And even if you don't plan to sell, honestly, because you will run a better business that run without you. And there are, at the end of each chapter, some questions so you can evaluate your business and get a score and get specific recommendation, in your situation, depending where you are and what you want to do.
Right. Yeah, I will say when I decided to sell my real estate team, I decided and sold in about 2 months. And yet, what helped is that I had always built that team, that business. And it's just how I always live my life. Like, so that if I had to sell, it would be set up well for that. So
Yeah.
I think you make a lot of good points along those lines, Muriel, that you can build a good when you build a strong business, when you build a business that would look good to a buyer, you're also just building a good business for yourself. And so
Absolutely.
they're not mutually exclusive. So, for all of our entrepreneurs and business owners who are listening, paying attention to these 4 fundamentals that Muriel's talking about, thinking about, how cyclical is your revenue, or is it steady, right? How much do you depend on one of your clients, right? How much of your business is one client bring? How much does it depend on the founder or the owner of the business, right? All of these things. As you solve those problems, not only do you increase your value if you should ever sell, you also make it a better business for you today. And you get that time that you can't have if you just decide to sell a few months before, like I did, if you hadn't already built the business with good fundamentals. Now, along those lines, Muriel, as we wrap up, what is one thing a founder or owner could do this week to start moving the needle on their business's value?
One thing, maybe document one of the tasks that you're doing and that you have not documented. So you started building your
Love that.
library of documentation of SOPs, as we call, so you can possibly delegate that task. And, it's pretty straightforward to create. You don't have to be overthinking it. Just just take some AI, talk about it, have it formatted for you, or record your screen with some recording tool to show how it's done, and, start from there. That's
Right.
the action.
I love it. You could just say, one procedure a week. We're going to document it, and that's a start. And then that's a start to handing it off to someone else. Now, Muriel, as we wrap up, I know you had mentioned before, and we'll have in the show notes your website. If somebody would like to reach out and connect, what is the best place for them to find you?
So the best place is on LinkedIn, where I am very active. You can find me on LinkedIn just searching for my name, Muriel Touati. But also, since I am recording quite a few podcasts at the moment, I have just set up a new YouTube channel called Exit3D Insight, to be able to have a playlist with all my great, interviewing podcasts like this one today, and others, and also publish my own content as well. So you can find the channel and follow it.
I love that. I'm a huge YouTube fan. YouTube University is where it's always fun. My kids do it too. It's great. They ask me a question. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know that. Go find it on YouTube.
My son also has his little YouTube channel. Did you see your
Amazing. And what
children?
does he do?
Well,
What does he
he
do
loves
on
making
YouTube?
movies. He loves making movies, and so he's making movies for kids with his toys, and it's a lot of fun. If I can mention it, it's called Adam's Movies. And there are quite a few channels with the same name, but you'll recognize it. It's a 10 years old boy.
Oh, that's amazing. My 10-year-old girl wants to have a YouTube channel for her crochet and other crafts. I told her she had
Really
to make 10
great.
videos before we started a channel, though. So she's in the middle of that.
Okay, because she can start, even with a first one and you suggest it's better to publish the first 10 video?
Mostly because she gets ideas and then moves on to another idea before she fully executes. So I need her to commit for 10 videos before we start the channel. Otherwise, it'll be like whatever the statistic is about the number of channels that, die within the first year,
Yeah.
kind of like businesses. But I love this, and I love how we're having these entrepreneurial kids who are out there doing their own cool stuff as well. So thank you so much, Muriel. What a great conversation. So for our listeners, Muriel really laid out the structural cracks that quietly chop at a founder's valuation, unfortunately. And she gave us what it takes to build some things buyers will actually pay a premium for. So much of it is something you can do in your business. All right, owners and founders, you can make these changes. Now, strategy is one part, and it's the follow through where most leaders get stuck. That's why we built Workergenix. Our full-time ultimate executive assistants can sit inside your business and keep things moving behind the scenes, help reduce that dependency on the founders and increase your business's value. So if that sounds like what you need, come find us at workergenix.com. Huge thanks to Muriel, and thanks for listening. Catch you on the next one.